excited to introduce Walker Reynolds.
Right, thank you. How many of you were here 2 years ago when I spoke the first time? Okay. All right, so we're going to start with, I'm going to start with two questions. All right, so question number one is, what was the takeaway from what were you supposed to do when you left the conference 2 years ago after the keynote? Right, what is our digital strategy, right? You were supposed to go to the highest ranking person in your organization and ask them a simple question. What is our digital strategy? And if they say, what do you mean? You say, what is our digital strategy? How many of you did that? So one here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and scare you, all right, for real. Most of you are not going to be in business. I mean, most of you will go out of business. You'll get acquired and you will go broke. And that is an empirical certainty. It's an absolute empirical certainty. We can measure it with math. We can use data to calculate it. You will go out of business. And you wasted 2 years. So those of you who heard me say 2 years ago, go back to your organization and ask the question, what is our digital strategy? You may be the reason you go broke. Honestly. And there are people who work in your organizations who are counting on you to ask that question. Middle-class Americans. So this year, what's everybody going to do when they leave the keynote address? Okay, you must ask this question. You must. Did anybody hear the big announcement from Ford yesterday? What was the big announcement from Ford?
I was in a Round Robin's meeting. I didn't hear it.
So yesterday, Jim Farley announced that they were going to terminate the EV battery plant, the $5 billion plant in Michigan yesterday, which is going to cost about 45,000 jobs total. Do you know why?
Demand is not there for EVs.
Demand is there.
It costs them too much money to make a car.
Ford has lost. One of the other questions I'm going to ask you is, what has changed in the last 2 years? Ford has lost. Jim Farley went on a podcast 3 months ago and said, we can't beat Tesla. We lost. And then he explained why. He said that over the course of the previous 30 years, we outsourced all of our intellectual property. We don't own any of our software. We don't own any of our infrastructure. Bosch owns the software inside of the electronic control module in every one of our big vehicles, so we don't have access to the data in that ECM. And those contracts don't expire for another 8 years. He spent an hour explaining why Ford will die. And that is an absolute empirical certainty. Does anybody disagree with me? Toyota also knows that they have lost. That's why they created Toyota AI Ventures, which will be the future of Toyota at the around 2030 mark. Toyota has lost. Okay? Digital is very, very important. Security is important. It is absolutely important. Okay? Digital is more important than security. If you are not a digital company, you are dead. You are dead. There's no way to survive. None. And I'm going to show you some examples today of companies that are so far ahead of their competitors, they cannot lose, and Tesla is one of them. Does anyone think that Tesla will not be the largest company in the world for the next 2 decades? Anybody disagree? There were a lot of people in here 2 years ago who told me I was full of shit when it came to Tesla. There were actually a half dozen people. The Model Y is the #1 selling car in the world. That happened at the beginning of this year. And the last time it wasn't a Toyota vehicle was 25 years ago. Okay? So I'm going to ask you guys questions today. Like, how are you treating data as a commodity in your organization? I'm going to ask you those types of questions. And all of that's going to get to how it is that Tesla makes the best vehicles in the world and dominates the market. Who here owns a Tesla? I know there was one person, right? I think it's Ron actually, right? Right. Nobody else owns a Tesla. Anybody driven a Tesla? Okay, what'd you think? You're just cool. What about it was cool?
It actually has a lot of power.
Okay, how does it have a lot of power?
Torque.
How does it have a lot of power?
Well, there's no real components to it. It's just all right to the drivetrain.
What if I told you that the Model S Plaid and the Model S are the same car? The only thing that's different are the brakes. What if I told you that? Does anybody know the difference between the Model S and the Model S Plaid? The Plaid is the one that goes 0 to 60 in 1.9 seconds. Okay, it's got red brake pads on it. And the Model S is the one that goes 0 to 60 in like 2.4 seconds. The Model S Plaid costs about $35,000 more than the Model S. They are literally the exact same car. The only thing that's different are the brakes. How did Tesla do that? Software. Software. I've owned my Model S for almost 2 years now. It just received its 53rd software update. There have been 3 recalls that were fixed through software. Okay? The difference between digital companies like Tesla and everyone else is that data is a commodity in that company. It is the primary focus. Data is a commodity. It is something we learn from. It is something we transform into information to drive value for the business. You guys are all in supply chain. We're going to talk about digital supply chain today, right? I'm going to talk about what your customers are doing. Like, what are manufacturers doing? And what have they done in the last 2 years? Fundamentally, the speed of manufacturing and industry, it literally is, it's an exponential curve. Every year is a decade. The reason Tesla can't be caught is because they're a digital company, a fully digital company. When it takes, if you were a car company, what would take you 12 weeks to figure out and solve, they figure out in a day. And they predicted it. The reason Ford can't beat Tesla is because Tesla is solving their problems in 2-week cycles, and Ford is solving their problems in 16-week cycles. So what happens at the end of the year? Just 1 year. And I'm so angry at Jim Farley because I've been ripping him a new ass for the last 5 years publicly. And Mary Barra at General Motors. And Eric Barnstedt at Microsoft. I call them out by name. They will cost hundreds of thousands of people their jobs because of a lack of leadership. And I'm incredibly disappointed that there was only one person in this room that went and asked, what is our digital strategy? Don't do that again, please. Please don't do that again. Okay? Question number 2 for you guys. Hopefully you're sufficiently scared, because you should be. What are your problems? You guys are you're distributors and suppliers, and you sell stuff to end users. And I don't even care what it is. I know most of it's IT equipment. But what are your problems? What are the biggest problems you have in your business? You right there, the one who... Communication? Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, so the information that gets transferred from one person to the next it doesn't happen fast enough, or sometimes it doesn't even happen.
Correct. How much of you do like manual data entry? Like a person comments in a box, or they fill out a spreadsheet, or how reliable is that? Those of you who are the decision makers, or the executives who are calling the shots. How much can you rely on the data that human beings enter? What's that? The answer is you can't. A world-class number is 60% fidelity, and that's the Japanese. The next closest culture are the Germans. They're at 55%. Do you know how accurate data is that Americans enter into spreadsheets? Or when they write notes about what happened, this customer asked for XYZ. Do you know how accurate that is? We call that data fidelity. Give me a number. You know that it's under 55%. It's right at 30 to 31%. Yes. So if you're relying on manual data, data's not a commodity in your business. It's garbage. It's an albatross. How many of you grew 100% year over year from last year to this year? Just raise your hand. How many of you grew 50%? How many of you grew 30%? Okay. You guys will survive. If in 2023 you are not growing 30% year over year, you are dead. You are absolutely dead. It's diminishing returns. So how do you solve it? Well, you turn the data all around you into value for your customers, for you. You drive efficiency that way. The data points that are all around you. Like, for example, you guys sell switches, right? Routers. Do you guys sell switches and routers? NAT devices? Give me an example of something you sell. Say it again.
Industrial tools, industrial supplies.
So give me an example of an industrial supply.
Grinding wheel.
A grinding wheel? Okay. So a grinding wheel is like a loaf of bread. Okay, so we have a client. They're a bakery. They have 43 bakeries all over North America. And their biggest competitor is Bimbo. They are not Bimbo. It's their big competitor. And they decided a couple of years ago to go digital. You want to know why? Well, because if they weren't a digital company, they couldn't collect data from their customers. So when I asked them the question, what is your biggest problem? The biggest problem was, we don't know when our bread is sold. We don't know when the loaf is opened. We don't know how long the loaf is open. We don't know how long the loaf spent in humidity greater than 60% in the back stock room of some grocery store. We don't know when the loaf was completed. Are all of those data points important? Like, say you sell grinding wheels, right? If you sell grinding wheels, you're either doing a replenishment at an interval, or somebody's getting on the phone, right? Or they're going to a portal, okay? Your competitor is going to figure out a way to determine what their replenishment needs to be without ever getting on the phone. That's what will happen. It's already happening. So the question would be, what you would have to ask yourself is, how could we take a consumable like a grinding wheel and collect data off of it? The answer is, it would start with people, scanning barcodes and that kind of stuff, storing it in a data warehouse, looking at the rising and falling edges of each of those events, developing a skyline algorithm, and then predicting how long grinding wheels last. You get those of you who were here 2 years ago, I asked you the question, does everyone agree Amazon is awesome, right? I did the Amazon speech 2 years ago. I'll do it again today. Does everybody agree Amazon's awesome? I know this guy. You were using AI, right? In the middle, you're using it for cybersecurity? You? Were you here 2 years ago? Okay. I thought you were the guy who said you're using cybersecurity technology that is artificial intelligence is predicting intrusions. They're monitoring on the wire and predicting intrusions. That wasn't you?
That wasn't me.
Okay, it was a guy sitting next to you.
Good looking guy.
Yes, go ahead.
That was me.
Oh, it was you. There you go. It was this guy right here. All right. So everyone agrees Amazon's awesome. Why are they awesome? So,
What I want today.
right, so everybody's in this room, right? All y'all are smart, everyone's accomplished, degreed, all that stuff, okay?
What you're going to buy before you...
Right, they predict what you're going to buy 6 weeks before you buy it. 99% accuracy. So all these smart people in the room, I say to you, that's what we're going to do. As an executive, I'm going to say this is the customer experience. 99% of Americans will be able to buy whatever they want at the absolute best price. It'll get shipped to their door in 48 hours or less. For free. How do you do that? Put all these people, I've done this hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. And I have asked the most brilliant technical minds, let's brainstorm it. Let's put it up on a whiteboard. Let's create the idea right now. A company's already done it for us, and yet we still can't articulate how to do it. In 2023, That is a problem. The answer is that Amazon predicts what you're going to buy before you buy it 6 weeks out. That's what they do, and they use data to do it. I'm going to show you some stuff with artificial intelligence. Right? Everyone's heard AI, everyone's heard ML. Do you guys know what what's the difference? If you're a techie person, don't answer the question. But what is the difference between machine learning and artificial intelligence? Everybody know that those are the two terms that matter, right? What is machine learning? I've got it up there. Right. Machine learning is nothing more than computers learning from data. So I could take all these data points and give me an example of a data point. That would be like a transaction with a customer, right? So if I were to take 100,000 records, transactions with one customer, and I turned a data scientist loose on that 99% fidelity data, assuming a human being didn't enter it. Okay, that's why you can't have human beings entering it. Okay, 99% reliable data. I turn a data scientist loose on 100,000 records, transactions with a customer. I will predict that customer's behavior. That's what machine learning is. Machine learning is learning from the past, monitoring the present, and predicting the future. That's all it is. You learn from the past and you create patterns. And then you look for that pattern. And the moment you see that pattern, you say, this is what we think the outcome is going to be. How many of you are doing that in your supply chain right now? Anybody? Even on a small scale.
We're doing like vending and stuff like that, where the vending machine is tracking everything, and we know what it is, and we can order it, and we got, all the different, amounts of usage, monthly usage, weekly usage, we track all that stuff. So, I mean, that's one way, obviously.
Okay. Artificial intelligence, what's that? So machine learning is computers learning from data. Artificial intelligence is what?
Mimicking human intelligence.
Yes, computers mimicking human intelligence. Okay? Machine learning, when you ever hear the term machine learning, it's just I'm learning and trying to predict something. There's no action. Machine learning never has an action. It's always I'm learning and predicting. I'm identifying and I'm predicting. Artificial intelligence is the decision-making process. Neural networks, decision trees, that kind of stuff. I'm going to show you some examples of artificial intelligence. So what has happened in the last 2 years? Let's talk about some of the technology, some of the developments in the last 2 years. And I didn't list any of them up there. So just give me what's happened in the last 2 years in the market? Consumer and industrial. What? ChatGPT is obviously a huge development last year, right? November of 2022, the world changed. How does ChatGPT work? Again, if you are a techie, don't answer the question. How does ChatGPT work? How many of you have used ChatGPT? Okay, so those of you who did not raise your hand, if you worked for me, I would terminate you. I mean, I would literally fire you. It is mandatory in my company that you have a ChatGPT chat open next to your workstation all day long. You are an artificial intelligence supervisor in my companies. Why? I'm going to show you some technology we developed that I personally wrote last year. It took me 8 months to write the code. I did the exact same thing with ChatGPT in 40 hours. I took a project that we did in 160 hours for a client the previous year, and we did it in 8 hours using ChatGPT. Jared, who's 19 years old, learned 3 professions on 3 consecutive days, only giving himself 2 hours each night using ChatGPT. The most productive person in my organization, and he's the most productive. And it's not even close. It's a 3-to-1 ratio. 3-to-1. He learned how to be general counsel on the first night. He learned how to be our director of human resources on the second night. And he learned how to be our director of digital media on the third night. And he wrote all the plans, everything. 500 pages of standards and documentations in 6 hours of work in 3 different domains, and it took that to convince our team the world has changed. Okay, so when you guys leave, play with ChatGPT. I'm going to show you how it works. We're actually, when we get into what is digital supply chain, we're going to use ChatGPT, and we're going to talk to ChatGPT as the expert. That's what we're going to do here in a little bit. Okay? What else has changed in the last 2 years? Tesla now rules the world, right? Anything else that's changed in the last 2 years?
War in Ukraine.
Okay. The war in Ukraine. It's a good example.
Driverless cars without anybody.
Right, there you go. So driverless cars, really, we proved viability in the last 2 years. That's the big one. I mean, think of how crazy that is. Like in 1998, I think I drove like a Pontiac Sunbird or something, a standard manual Pontiac Sunbird. No, it was a Toyota Paseo, manual, in 1998. And 25 years later into my career, my Tesla drives itself. And I mean it. Like, I get it. I pull out of my driveway. I live in North Dallas. I pull out of my driveway. I hit work. And then my car drives. Pulls out into Webb Chapel, which is a 6-lane, 3 lanes, 45 mile an hour. This is not in the country. This is not on the interstate. It's in the city. We did a road trip to Colorado and to Loveland, to Denver. And I'm going to show you some of the technology here in a second. And my Tesla drove 80% of the drive. And when I got out of the car, I was refreshed. And how many of you do a 20-hour road trip, and then what's the first thing you do? You crash in the hotel. Or you tell your mom, I need a 2-hour nap on the couch. I didn't do that. Just hopped out of the car and went to work. The world has fundamentally changed in the last 2 years. Fundamentally. But the biggest development is ChatGPT. You want to know how it works? You give it a prompt. You tell ChatGPT what it is. This is who you are. This is what you know. Okay? And this is the format of how I want you to respond to me. But this is your domain expertise. You could just ask a question, but it's much better to prompt it in terms of what level of expertise you want it to have. Okay? I'm another physician. You're going to talk to me like a physician. I encourage you to do this. It'll literally respond with all of the Latin terms for if you say I'm a physician and the customer is the patient is experiencing pain when they supinate their arm along the radial axis of their forearm, it responds in all the Latin. But if you say I'm a 3rd grader, it says Daddy got boo-boo. Okay? So number 1, you give it a prompt. And then you ask it a question, and based on that prompt, it gives a response. But how does it give the response? This is so crazy. It'll blow your mind. 1 word at a time. And then it predicts the next word. And it gets it right 99% of the time. That's why ChatGPT responds like this. It predicts the next word. It has no idea what it's saying. None whatsoever. It just finds patterns in language and predicts the next word. And how did it do that? All the stuff that we've been collecting on the internet over the last 30 years, it trained on that data. Now imagine those of you who have been around for 30 or 40 years and you had databases and you started out with triplicate and all that stuff in filing cabinets, and hopefully you digitized that, and then you went to databases. All the stuff that's sitting in the databases you guys have within your infrastructure is your gold mine. It is the most valuable commodity in your business after your employees. So what are your problems? Now that I've posed that to you again, what are your problems? You sell grinding wheels. What's the biggest problem in selling a grinding wheel? How many are you drop ship them or do you keep them in inventory? Okay. How many do I keep in inventory is a problem. Okay. Do you lose opportunities with customers because you don't have enough in inventory when they need it? Do they? Okay. Lead times in supply chain, right? That's a problem. Guess who doesn't have a problem in supply chain? Amazon does not have a problem in supply chain. Tesla does not have a problem in supply chain. How do you explain that if they're part of the same global economy? I'm sorry?
They make everything themselves.
They don't.
Control it all. Well,
What-
not just about.
Virtually, what they do is virtually they take their suppliers and their suppliers become part of their business. They join the same ecosystem. When I talked about the IBC Connect a couple of years ago, I was looking for how am I going to tell these people? I didn't know how IBC worked. So I sat in on this session on IBC Connect and I'm like, oh, they already have their solution. We don't even have to build one. They already have it. One common digital ecosystem. The reason Tesla doesn't have supply chain issues, and they do run into occasional supply, but like Saint-Gobain, everybody knows Saint-Gobain, they're a large French multinational, right? They make the windows for Teslas. So if you walk up to a Tesla, there's actually a Saint-Gobain logo on the driver and passenger side windows. Do you know that they never miss a delivery? And when I say never, I mean they have never missed a delivery.
Except when they're selling writing.
Except, no. But the reason I use Saint-Gobain is because Saint-Gobain is a legacy company. They're not a digital company, except for the division of the business that works with Tesla. Except for the division that works with Tesla. And that's because Tesla told them they must be. There's no one in your industry that's telling you you must be. There are no customers that are telling you you must be. Maybe they are. Hopefully they are. Okay? And that's a unique challenge that y'all face. All right, let's talk about Industry 5 and ChatGPT. So I'm going to play a video here. It's about 5 minutes. It has nothing to do with industry. And it has everything to do with industry. Okay? So this is a documentary we just released 3 weeks ago, telling the story of some technology we developed in the fitness industry. I'm going to ask you who in here works out, lifts weights. Okay. So you guys should remember Industry 1, Industry 2. Your customers are either this, Industry 3, and they're dead. They can't be saved. If you're still on the left side of the distribution, you're dead. Or you're on the right side of the maturity distribution, you're alive.
What is the difference between the elite level athlete and the weekend warrior? So I'm Walker Reynolds. I'm the president and founder of FullStrength.ai. I grew up in upstate New York. I was a poor kid, dirt-ass poor kid. You know, we had to save up to be poor. But I grew up in a family that taught three very, very valuable pillars for life. Number one, discipline. Number two, respect. Number three, hard work. And the family that I grew up in talked a lot about, until you have those three pillars on lockdown, don't focus on anything else. And so the foundation upon my life, upon which I do everything in my life, is based on those three pillars. And then later on, I translated those three pillars into the 5 core values upon which I operate all my companies: transparency, authenticity, expertise, humility, and servant leadership. And then our life's mission, literally the goal for my life, is to help save and create middle-class jobs in the US. That's my goal. And it's because I grew up in a place and a time when middle-class jobs evaporated in the Northeast. And that was just a function of us not leveraging technology. So I've dedicated my life to using technology to help save and create middle-class jobs. I'm a 49-year-old engineer and entrepreneur who specializes in digital transformation. I built my career, my engineering reputation, on helping manufacturers digitally transform so that we can remain viable in a global economy. That is, manufacturing in the United States can remain viable. I've built my entire reputation on helping manufacturers remain viable by becoming digital. What's happened is I'm also a strength athlete. And over the last 2 years, I've been converging together that which I do in my professional life with what I do in my personal life, powerlifting with my team. The interesting thing that's happening right now is we're transitioning from the fourth to the fifth industrial revolution. Fifth industrial revolution is all about artificial intelligence, the convergence of artificial intelligence with human intelligence. And that's sort of where our vision system comes from. It's very much a fifth industrial revolution product.
We developed this technology here, and I'm going to tell you about it in a second.
One of the things that just stands out to me over the last 3 years of being very, very serious lifter is the sheer number of people who come and go. There's 40 core lifters at our gym. There are thousands that come through. I mean, that's not hyperbole. There are literally thousands of people that have come through the gym, and I've asked the question over and over and over again, why do they come and leave? Like, why don't they stay? Why is it that 40 of us are in love with it and thousands come and they don't stay? And the answer is, I really think it's just one of three things. I think it's either they don't know what to do and they're embarrassed and they're afraid to ask for help. Number two, they don't see the return, the gains that they're looking for right away, and the soreness outweighs the gains that they see and they don't come back. And number three, they don't feel welcome. And so I wanted to use technology that we use with manufacturing to solve the first two problems. And the first two problems is, teaching them what to do and then maximizing. This is what your customers are doing right here. What's coming up. One of the technologies that I came across as a consultant was what's known as pose estimation. Pose estimation is basically zero contact, where I have a vision system that's looking at you. I can train a model that can tell me the pose that you are in by drawing dots on all of your joints and then drawing lines between each of those dots. So I can literally turn your body position into digital data. So the way that pose estimation is used in manufacturing is generally what we do is we estimate your pose when you're doing a certain repetitive task. So a really good one in tier 1 automotive is when a door gets put on a car, that door actually gets welded. It'll have hinges on it. The door comes to the door like this, and a person is guiding it, and they're placing it on. A robot runs the beads, and then they close the door. And they do that over and over and over and over again every day. So what we wanted to do is we use pose estimation to tell you how to place that door against the car in a way where you're not going to end up with a repetitive use injury. And we had to do it the exact same way. We're not going to put sensors on the operator, right? So we have to be able to just view the operator, and is the movement such that we're going to reduce the likelihood of injury if they do that movement 100 times in a shift.
So if I told you last year that I'm going to take technology that we developed to predict operators getting hurt, putting doors on cars, and that I was going to go to the Shaw Classic. Has anybody heard of Brian Shaw? Does anybody know who he is? He's a 4-time world's strongest man, 6'8", 440 pounds. He was the guy deadlifting at the beginning. He's a monster. Anyway, he does a huge strongman competition in Colorado every year. And I reached out to Brian and I said, we developed this technology that can predict how much a human being can lift without touching them, just using vision. And I'd like to go there during your competition, and I'd like to see if we can predict how much these professional athletes can lift. And so we set up, this whole documentary is about our success. We set the vision system up on the floor. We monitor the athletes using this technology, pose estimation. There's a whole, we calculate force and velocity without putting sensors on anyone. And we predicted a world record 5 rounds before it happened. Everybody in the VIP section, hundreds of people, we told them, Alexei Novikov will break the world record. Absolute empirical certainty, absolutely no doubt. None whatsoever. Moreover,
Did he know that you were predicting that?
The athletes knew we were monitoring their data, but they specifically asked us not to give them the data. So they knew that we were monitoring. They did ask afterwards. They didn't want to know in real time. So last year, we predicted that he would break the world record 5 rounds before it happened. Okay? And all of that was done by learning from all the videos of people deadlifting on the internet. That model that we developed was trained from data that's just available on the internet. We wrote a little program that just looked for all the videos, and it was only 10,000 videos. That's all it was. And now we can predict how much a human being can lift. We can predict the position they're in, and we can predict how much they can lift. That little green dot that goes in the center, that's the center of mass. We literally can calculate how much weight is evenly distributed across the body to within 1 pound. So when they're pulling 1,000 pounds, we can determine that they've transferred 1 pound of weight from one foot to the other without putting a sensor on them. And you don't know how many grinding wheels to put in your warehouse. Right? So the question is, if you supply companies that are doing things like that, and it was a side project, it took 18 months, I wrote the code, and then we had to monitor the operators for 18 months and wait for the next injury. They were losing millions of dollars, by the way. They were paying out millions in damages because there were always hip injuries. By the way, those of you will know, if you're a business owner, the bane of your existence are hip injuries. You're going to lose the employee for the rest of their career, and you're going to pay for that. So after 18 months, there was another hip injury, and they spent 6,000 hours of human beings monitoring, trying to figure out what these operators were doing wrong. And we set up a camera with pose estimation, and we turned every human movement into a shape, basically a chart. All those little dots. We stored them. And then when the injury happened, we took her and we looked at all her movements over the last 18 months, and we compared them to all the other operators, and it just went, oh, she doesn't shuffle her feet. She's the only one who pivots on her toe. Everybody else shuffles. Everybody else, when they grab the door, slightly shuffles the left foot. But she leaves her toes buried into the ground. And that's all it was. And that was not caught by the human eye. But it was caught by software. That's the power of machine learning and artificial intelligence. Okay? Here's some other examples of the power of machine learning and artificial intelligence. And computers learning from data. This is me. I put that photo up there for a reason. Okay? That's a better version of me. That guy's way better looking than I am. And he looks way cooler. How was that done? Artificial intelligence did that. I'm going to show you another one. Okay?
Can you make that a little bit bigger so we can see it back here?
This photo? I am.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Start there, that's good, you look good.
Thank you. All right, this is a video. This is a video of me doing what's known as a good morning squat the other day. It's totally irrelevant to what we do, but I'm going to show you the power of AI. Okay? So this is a video. This is an actual video of just me working out, doing a good morning, a bend over, and then a deep squat. Okay? What I wanted to do was take my awesome video and become a samurai. And so I ran it through an artificial intelligence algorithm that converted me into a samurai, including the girl in the background. And that took about 80 minutes to do. So what's the value of that? What's the value of that? What would be the value of being able to use artificial intelligence to turn you into a better version of yourself?
More ninja moves.
Marketing?
Marketing, exactly. Right? It's marketing. So, what you should be thinking about right now is what is the data that you have in your organizations? Okay? That's the first thing you should be thinking about. What is the data we have? Does everybody know what data is? What is it? What is, if I say, what's the difference between data and information?
Recorded information.
So data is something that happened and when it happened. That's all it is. It's an event. It's the rising edge of something. It would be material handler put pallet in section whatever in the warehouse. Another event would be when you did your inventory reconciliation and you reconciled inventory at the end of the month, and each record would be an event. What is information, though? Data is something that happened and when. So all the places you store something that happened and when, that's data. What is information? It's what you convert data into to make decisions. Okay? You can never act on data. If you can act on it, it's information. So that fancy little screen I showed you that was in the video, that is an information screen. Behind it is all data that's collected off the plant floor, and then the manufacturers are converting that into data. I'm going to go through 2 case studies, okay? And I'm going to show you what it is manufacturers have been doing over the last 5 years to transform their businesses. Actually, like how they're changing. And eventually what will happen, all manufacturers who are still alive will be digital. They'll be part of an ecosystem. Data will be their primary commodity. Everything will be connected. This is why when you were talking about security and using firewalls and DNS to make things disappear, right? Well, the most advanced companies in the world don't do that. They use firewalls. But behind the firewall, everything's exposed. And then they hire what people? They hire the most vulnerable to cyber attacks, but not the ones who lose the most money. That's what they do. Okay, we call that the ID10T fault. The biggest risk you have in your organization is an ID10T fault. Okay? You can write it down and see what I mean. Write it.
We have it all the time.
Okay? That's the biggest risk. The biggest risk is someone doing something that I would never do, or Jared would never do. Okay? I'll tell you a story. Okay? We had a business development guy. He was based in Washington. And he sends me an email. He says, "Hey, Walker, I got those $3,000 worth of gift cards you asked for. Where do you want me to send them?" And I said, "What do you mean? I didn't ask you for $3,000. Why would I ask you in Washington to buy me $3,000 worth of gift cards?" And he showed me the email, the phishing email that they sent. They did the on.Microsoft, they did the spoof thing, right? And he went and bought $3,000 worth of gift cards with his own money. But fortunately, he emailed me directly. He didn't reply to the email that they had sent. And so we were able to intercept. Okay? I gave him the $3,000. I kept the gift cards. And then we let him go. We didn't train him. We let him go. And I said, "You're not smart enough for this economy. I'm sorry." Okay? Those are the people you have to worry about in your organization. And right now, most of the security interventions are all hurdles, right? The barriers, they're all hurdles. They're not infallible. They're just hurdles. Be the company that it's too much of a pain in the butt to try to intrude. That's what it is, right? This is my whole philosophy on security. It's not real. It's a mirage, right? But it's important. It's still important. I'm going to show you a couple of things that manufacturers are doing.
You're at like 45 minutes.
Good. So I have about 15 minutes left. So we're going to go over what manufacturers are doing, your customers, okay? All manufacturers who are going to survive are doing this. They are digitally transforming. Okay, most of them are in process now. If they haven't started now, there's no chance for them. Okay, and that happened in November. In fact, I gave a keynote address at Mass MEP, the Manufacturing Excellence Program in Massachusetts. I gave a keynote address, and I literally put the normalized distribution up on the screen, and I said, this is 1,383 manufacturers, and this is how digitally mature they are. And anybody who's on the mean or below, they're a dead company. Don't invest any money in them. There's no way to save them. And every company that's on the mean or higher, they can survive. That's where we are now. So what I'm going to show you are the companies that are on the mean, digitally mature or above, all the way up to Tesla, which is the most digitally advanced company in the world. By the way, interesting fact. Of the 10 most digitally mature companies in the world, 3 of them are run by Elon Musk. 3 of them. Okay? Only 1 of them is a legacy company. 9 of them started after the year 2000. Does anybody know? There's no way you'll know it, but it's Volkswagen North America. It's literally the only legacy company that's one of the 10 most digitally advanced companies in the world. It's Volkswagen North America. The other 9 are all, they started after the year 2000. But this is what they're doing. Their goal is to become part of a much larger digital ecosystem, connected into a digital supply chain, similar to what Tesla does. All suppliers, not just the suppliers Tesla buys and sells from, but all potential suppliers are in the same ecosystem. Okay? The first step in becoming a digital company, your customers, is step 1. They connect to every smart thing in the business, they collect every single data point, and they store every single data point, every single transition. Not just the ones they need, but every single one. Why? Because we use software to find patterns in data we can't see with the naked eye. We don't come up with a hypothesis to test. We use software to come up with a hypothesis for us by looking for patterns in our data. That's what artificial intelligence and machine learning does. So the first thing that you guys have to do as organizations is you got to collect every data point digitally, and you got to put it in some place. The best place for y'all to do that to start is through the IBC Connect infrastructure, okay? Because it is an event engine. That's what it is, okay? Connect, collect, store. Then what they do is they analyze that data, and then they visualize it in screens like I just showed in that video. They put it up on a screen, informative screens, to help people make decisions. That's the first step. Then what they do is they find patterns, they predict, they report, and they solve. They no longer rely on the human being to do the analysis. They use software to do it. And then artificial intelligence recommends an intervention, a mitigation. This is a problem we've predicted, and we recommend we do this. We recommend we adjust the on-hand quantity of grinding wheel, whatever, to 14. And that's an event that goes to a person. And then a person says, you know what, that passes a sniff test, approved. The human being is the one who is executing the recommendations or modifying the recommendations that comes from artificial intelligence, just like every employee in my companies. Nobody writes a post on LinkedIn without using ChatGPT. No one writes an email without using ChatGPT. No one writes a new policy. No one writes a line of code. No one puts together a project plan. Artificial intelligence touches every single event in our business, every single one. Once they find patterns, they predict and they report and they solve. If they can get to that point right there, then what it means is they are a digital company built on a common infrastructure. You cannot, and I'm not going to get into this technical part here because I know you guys aren't engineers, right? There are engineers in here, I'm assuming, but the unified namespace that you saw in the keynote address, that is the architecture that all organizations who are digitally mature, who get to that solve step, that's the architecture they're on. Imagine this. This is what the unified namespace is. You have an organization. Give me the name of one of your companies. Somebody. Where do you work?
RNP Industrials,
RNP Industrial Supply. Okay. And what location? Where do you work?
Fort Worth, Texas.
So you're in Fort Worth. Okay. Is that the only location?
Yes, sir.
All right. So, and then what are the areas of what are the domains of that business? So give me the departments.
We've got accounting,
Okay.
sales,
Okay.
purchasing,
Where are your warehouses?
just one in Fort Worth.
Okay. Is it a different location?
No, same.
Okay, same location. All right, so a unified namespace would be company name, Fort Worth location, all of the domains, plus your warehouse. Under your warehouse is going to contain all of the, so let's say you have master item codes. You'll have master item code, and then you'll have all your subcodes, right? You'll have product family, and then you'll have, so whatever, product family dash whatever. That's what a unified namespace is. But let's say you have a thing like a customer. In every CRM, what they're doing is they're creating an infrastructure that's like a file share that can be navigated with human eyes and software. That's how Tesla does it. It's how Amazon does it. They all use this concept called the unified namespace. You want to know what the beauty of that is? Is that if I'm using that type of structure, and you're using that type of structure, and you're using that type of structure, and you're using that type of structure, we can just plug and play. Okay? I'm going to give you a case study. I'm going to go over an example. We have this client who's a flexible packager in Dallas. Okay? Bought by a guy, came back from Europe. It was a dying company. Okay? He bought the company for something to have something for his kids to do. Okay? So it was losing money every single year. It's a flexible packaging makes like the bags for chips. Okay? They have printing, and they have lamination, and they have slitting, and they have pouch, and they have bag. Those are the areas, the domains of the business. So they brought us in to digitally transform them using this concept. And we collected all their data, and we turned it into information, and we analyzed it. We could tell them who their best operators were. We could tell them that, hey, your operators don't run your, hey, when you're running this product code, making this bag, you're using different recipe set points every single time you run it. Tesla never does that. Tesla gets it right every single time. But because you're relying on human beings to do the setup and nothing is integrated, it's possible for you to run the machine one way, and you to run the machine a different way, and you to run the machine a different way. Same product. Well, when we were all done with them, okay, they spent $1 million over 2 years. When we were done with them, they doubled their revenue, they doubled their efficiency, and we found out that 2 of our other customers, one was the chemical company that made the ink that they print with, and one of them was the sugar water company that they make the bags for. They also had been digitally transformed by us. So we went to those customers. This is the digital supply chain, okay? We went to the chemical company that makes the pigment for the ink, and we said, hey, what data would you want from this flexible packager if you could get it? Oh, that's easy. I'd love to know the relative humidity inside the plant when they're using our ink to do the printing. I'd love to know the temperature. I'd love to know what the web tension was on the press. They gave us like maybe 8 data points they would love to have in real time that they could monitor in real time. Then we went to the sugar water manufacturer and we said, what do you guys want to know? And they said, we want to know when our packaging is going to be delivered to the hour. That's all we want to know. Where is it to the hour? Why? Well, because we don't want to take that packaging and put it in a warehouse and then move it to the production line. We want it to go from the back door directly to the production line. It comes off the truck, right? And we will set up our schedule so when that truck backs up, the packaging goes directly to the production line. Okay, and that's a 7-figure savings for that company. Do you know how long it took for us to connect all 3 of those companies together and share the data that they were asking for? 11 minutes. 11 minutes start to finish. And that include the login. That's the power of the digital supply chain. Imagine you had insight into your grinding wheel supplier. You're the distributor? Okay. Imagine you had insight into the supplier of your grinding wheels. Okay? How much would that help you? Like if you knew exactly what they're producing, when they're producing it, when it would be able to be delivered to you, how valuable would that be? Now imagine you had insight into every grinding wheel manufacturer in the world, not just the one you buy from. Tell me how valuable that is. And that's why Tesla can't be beat. They will always have the best suppliers. They will never run out of their raw material. And they collect data from the cars they sell to their customers to make those cars better after the customer bought them. How the hell do you beat that? Well, you have to do it better. Well, how do you do it better if they have a 15-year head start and you have an 8-year contract before you'll ever be able to have access to that data? And the answer is you don't. That's the digital supply chain. Okay? Let's see what ChatGPT says the digital supply chain is. Okay? So I asked ChatGPT, hey, what is the digital supply chain? And I didn't read it. So let's see if it got it right. So it said the digital supply chain refers to the use of digital technologies to enhance, automate, and integrate the various processes and procedures involved in the production and distribution of goods and services. It encompasses the entire life cycle of a product. So your grinding wheel would be from the design all the way through the acquisition of the raw materials to create that grinding wheel, to the packaging that goes on the outside of it, to the product engineer who is figuring out how to make that grinding wheel better. And how do they do that? By collecting data off of the people who use the grinding wheels. Except right now they do that on a clipboard. And they do it through complaints that come through you. So the customer hates the wheel, it cracked on the first time they tried it, they call bitching at you, you replace it, then you tell them, hey, your wheel was garbage. Tesla doesn't do that. Tesla tells me when my car is going to have a problem before it has a problem. That's the digital supply chain. So connectivity, digital connectivity, everything must be connected. Advanced analysis, automation, IoT, the Internet of Things. Do you guys know what the Internet of Things is? The Internet of Things is what he was talking about. So right now we are on an Internet of Things, okay, and it's the access point in this room. So for all of you who are on the Wi-Fi, we have created an Internet of Things. It's really more the intranet of things. So from the access point down, we are all connected together. And I am a hacker. And actually, we used to do this funny joke. I would go in front of the board of directors of enter in any company, and they would say that they were secure, and I would say, no, you're not. And I would say, I bet you $1 million I can hack your email in 15 minutes or less. $1 million. Do you take my bet? Yes. Never takes more than 7 minutes. You are only as secure as the smartest person who's trying to get your data at the end of the day. Okay? The Internet of Things is all the connected stuff on the intranet or internet. And if we are connected, we can share data. That's actually a good thing, not a bad thing. It can be dangerous, but it's a good thing. How many of you can look at the location of your kids right now? Okay, me too. And my kids are all over the country. How many of you can check your net worth? Can talk to the delivery driver at the front of your house? Okay. Open doors, right? All of that's the Internet of Things. How many of your businesses reflect your personal lives? The access you have in your personal life is similar to what you see in your businesses. None, right? None. Digital transformation, making data your primary commodity in your business is akin to making your business mirror what your personal life is like. A single pane of glass, access to all data and information you could possibly want, all human knowledge through one pane of glass. All business knowledge through one pane of glass. That's what your digital strategy should be. That's what it needs to be. I'm going to give you a couple of examples here on what your customers are doing, and then I'm going to open it up to questions. All right, so the first one, let me zoom in here. So these are on LinkedIn, so if you want to see these, okay. This is an example of a tier 1 automotive supplier. I'm going to tell this story. This manufacturer makes fuel pumps. And they have a production line that has 5 machines on it, 40 something cells, 48 different smart devices to create an intranet of things. Okay? By going through that process of connect, collect, store, analyze, visualize, find patterns, report, and solve, by going through that process, okay, using this infrastructure I just showed you, what they did was they digitally transformed one area of their business, this high-pressure fuel pump line. 5 production lines, 47 machines. It took a year. They spent a year doing this because it took IT a 3-month delay on IT, which is common. Okay? because we had to use network address translation to isolate the production lines. Okay? Here were the results of what they're doing. They spent $250,000 to collect every single data point. Okay? Connect to it, collect it, and store it. Then analyze and visualize it. They really spent $500,000. I paid for half of it myself. And the reason why was because they weren't going to do it. It was going to cost $500,000. I don't need to tell you that this was the only game in town. So if this plant isn't a plant, that place turns into Detroit. Okay? So I spent the other $250,000, my own money. They paid $250,000. Their efficiency, that is the productivity of their production line, went from 42%. That means if 100% means I'm running at absolutely theoretical maximum. When we initially started collecting their data, they were operating at 42% of their total efficiency. We doubled that number in just 90 days. They were producing 3,500 units of waste in fuel pumps per month. That reduced to 500. Okay? They were producing 35,000 good fuel pumps per month, and that went to 75,000. No changes to their production line. The only thing this company did was digitally transform this area. That's all they did. They collected all the data and they turned it into information. Their labor costs reduced by 39%. Their first pass yield, for those of you not in production lines, a thing might go through a production line more than once. The first pass yield is, did the fuel pump only have to go through the line one time, or did we have to rework it? Originally, 9 out of 10 was going through once, but 1 out of 10 needed to go through a second time. That went from 91 to 99%. The ROI, the return on investment, see that number? That's an 18-month number. $25 million. And they spent $250,000. That's what your customers are doing right now. All the ones that are going to survive. They're doing that. Okay? This is a transformative case study. I mean, this is an example of, this is why I get to come to these type of things and swear and dress the way I do, because of that. Okay? Otherwise I'd be in a suit and I'd be talking much nicer. This is transformative. Okay? But that's a huge company. You know what they did with that $25 million? They invested it in all of North America. They said every single facility in North America is going to get the same thing. They took from one little area in one little facility in Athens, Tennessee, and they funded all of the North American Digital Transformation Initiative. This is example number 2. This is the flexible packager. This flexible packager, I'll actually read this story. This is a mom and pop. This is the vast majority of small businesses in the United States. What percentage of manufacturers in the United States are $25 million or less? Total revenue. It's 95%. So 95% of all manufacturing is done by the smallest manufacturers. 95%. Okay? Just like in you guys, like I would assume that it's the same thing in your guys' industry, right? Distributors and suppliers are not huge. They're generally small businesses, right? And then you have like the Rexels and those guys who come and gobble up the small ones, right? Or what is it? Grainger, right? Grainger will do the same thing, right? This is that guy that I told you about who bought this plant for his kids, all right? So they had 20 state-of-the-art assets, 6 distinct areas. They had cutting-edge controls. Sorry, I get a lot of messages on LinkedIn. They had a foggy view of status against plan. And here were the results. They doubled annual revenue from $25 million to $50 million. No new assets. No new assets. Just by turning their data into information and then having people improve the business with accurate data and information, they doubled annual revenue. When we were originally talking to them, we were walking their plant floor. They were thinking about spending $500,000 on an ERP system. By the way, this is another reason IBC Connect is so valuable, Because if you were to try and go do what IBC Connect does on your own, you're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to build it. Okay? But they were thinking about spending $500,000 on a new ERP system. And over the course of the next 2 years, they spent $1 million to completely digitally transform the whole business. Okay, and they doubled annual revenue. They drastically reduced changeover times. They're a digital company now, and if they buy grinding wheels from you, they expect you to be a digital company too. And what is a digital company again? Right, data as a commodity. And before we got in here today, would any of you have described your business as digital? Would anyone have described your philosophy or your strategy as data is the primary commodity in our business? Okay, you would have, obviously. All right. Any comments, questions, concerns? Questions? I'm a security guy. I'm a guy who finds holes in security, but there's a technology, a very similar technology in the security sphere. It's like CPS-something. It's a very similar emerging technology. Uses artificial intelligence to identify vulnerabilities and close those vulnerabilities automatically using hardware ops and data ops. That's another. So rather than like SolarWinds, SolarWinds would like monitor services, or does monitor services and other things, it would notify you if a service goes down. Say you have a database that's running, it would monitor that database, and if it went down, you would get a notification, but it wouldn't auto restart it, it wouldn't mitigate, it would require some type of intervention from a human being. The next big thing is all this technology that's going to do that for you, so that you end up with 5 nines of uptime on your infrastructure. Now here's, and I'm glad you asked that question. There is a digital maturity matrix. Okay, it's 10 pillars and how you can judge a company on its digital maturity. We call it the Digital Transformation Maturity Assessment, and we do it for manufacturers. We don't do it for, I guess we have done it for one supplier, but that's not generally what we do, right? Or distributor. The companies, each of those 10 pillars, you're scored on a scale of 1 to 5. And then we know, literally just through that simple scoring, we know where all the weak points in an organization are. A digitally mature company, let's say my audience are people who work at digitally mature companies. When I just told you the next big thing, I would have gotten 100 questions. That's the difference. What I just told you isn't just groundbreaking, it is revolutionary. But because the room is digitally immature, you guys can't see it yet. You will.
Is it a good thing?
It's a good thing in that you don't have preconceptions about what's right. That's the advantage. It's a bad thing if you don't take the step. Right? And let me ask this question. IBC Connect is legit technology. By the way, nobody here has asked me to plug IBC Connect. No one, at any point, as no one said, they know that I'm going to come up here and piss you guys off. They didn't tell me what to say. This is my presentation. I evaluated IBC Connect as a third party. They didn't even know I was in the room. It was when I was here in 2021, and I sat in the back of the room, and then I asked the questions of the guy, and I said, that passes the sniff test. This will work. And then I went and I said, hey, you guys already have the solution. And even in my keynote, I even adjusted my keynote to point out that IBC Connect is technology you should all leverage on day one. You may move away from it as you become more and more digitally mature, but you should certainly be starting there. It's 8 inches in front of your face. You know what I mean? But I think the thing that concerns me the most is I was very compelling 2 years ago on the digital strategy. I was very compelling. I made the argument, and I answered every question. I overcame every objection, and only one person went back and did it, and that's not good, really bad. But it is a good thing to be digitally immature, assuming you're going to take the step.
Walker, I'm gonna make a comment.
Yeah, brother.
I'm just gonna speak as much as I can for the group. I think there's a lot more than one. Because I know a lot of people in this room. I think we're all just afraid to say something because we know we're gonna get beat.
Raise your hand if you actually did the digital strategy. Raise your hand. What were the results of the digital strategy? So,
With our company, we have a pretty smart IT guy. We went back and say, Walker Reynolds says we've got to have a digital strategy. He said, me and my IT team have been mapping that out, and he said, let me share it with you. So we started looking at that. Now, have we implemented all the things at that point in the last 2 years? No, but we have done lots of things. Again, you mentioned we've got this electrical. This is all tooling. This is all industrial tooling and grinding wheels and tooling, et cetera. And like John said over here, we've got automated vending machines, we got LBMX, we've got Connects, we've got, we're using all these things. And I'll say, greatly to your meeting 2 years ago that said this is where we've got to be, and our president, Tom Hagerty, said, yeah, this is where we've got to go. And I think there's more here. So don't feel like,
Good.
that didn't happen.
All
I think
right.
there's more in the room because I know.
I actually, my stomach sunk. I'm not gonna lie. It really rattled me. I should have waited until the end to ask it because it actually rattled me at the beginning of the presentation. I was like, yeah.
There was a good majority in here who thought you were full of shit.
Oh yeah. I spent 45 minutes, overcoming objections. I mean, no question about it. But that's part of the reason I'm here is I can overcome the objection. I mean, I can. It's empirical. How has it worked out for you though? Let me ask you that.
Very well. We were up 17% this year in revenue, 40% net income. We're doing fantastic.
So now after digital strategy and taking those steps, right? I mean, by the way, digital maturity for most organizations is a 5-year journey. It's a 5-year journey. It's iterative. You don't map it out and then, put your destination 5 years out there and you do a beeline straight to it. You do a lot of this, a lot of learning, mistakes. Oh, let's back up. Here we go. Things happen like ransomware. No one thought ransomware attacks were going to skyrocket. If you look at like the vast majority of security vulnerabilities, the vast majority of it is phishing. I think it's 80% or something. Ransomware is a tiny, tiny fraction. But the problem is it's getting hit by a car. It's falling off a cliff. The cost to your business is so great that everyone's terrified of it, and you should be. But you shouldn't. Most organizations there are a lot of organizations, I don't want to say most, are using the fear of what digital data could cost them to argue for inaction. Anybody else who you sit right here? You went back for digital strategy, right?
We went back, it's not that I went back, I'm kind of making a lot of the decisions and putting the things in place so that we can get there. It's not as quick as we might have wanted it to be, but we're putting the things in place, but that was my decision.
Okay, let me make a recommendation to you guys, okay? I'm gonna let you in on a little secret, something that we just recently did. So we're based in Dallas, so the University of Texas, UTD, has a great computer science program. So if you're in Fort Worth, go recruit some data scientists out of UTD, okay? Bring them in on a contract for 6 months, okay? Pay them $45,000 for 6 months. Bring them in and give them access to all your data. And say, where's the value here? We just did this. We did it for our customers. We did it for our own company. We hired this kid, Justin Dula, from UTD, first job out of college, and I'm already a data scientist. And he fundamentally transformed our approach. And it wasn't a ridiculous, if you hire someone like me for 6 months, that's $300,000. But if you could hire a data scientist right out of college. No job, never had a job. But he knows how to find patterns, or he or she knows how to find patterns in data that we can't see with the naked eye. And you turn them loose on your data. Here's a copy of our database. Where's the value there? Go find some value for us. That would be your first step. Okay, but I would say for everyone, I know that there are people who are really involved with IBC, and then there are people who are not really involved, right? You have the members who are gung-ho, and then you have those who just kind of maybe show up to this conference once a year, and the power of the IBC cannot be overstated. You know, you know, and I don't know what the politics are like or anything like that. I've been part of these groups before, and oftentimes the politics are a nightmare. But the first step that I would take is I would be leaning into the resources at IBC. And no one asked me to say that. And we spoke for 4 minutes out there, and it was, hey, this guy's going to introduce you. That's what it was. He didn't say, could you plug that or plug this? They don't say any of that stuff to me. That's my honest, impartial opinion. All right, other questions? Yeah.
When you say like everyone in your company is using GPT, and if they're not, you would get rid of them, are you ever worried like, okay, why don't you know how to send an email without using that? Why do you need that to help you send an email?
It isn't so much about you need it to send an email. It's that you can't beat Jared if you can't do it.
Okay.
And
You need to know it. And let you know how
I mean, the reality, yeah, here's the reality. The reality is that if I can take an engineering project that takes every other integrator 160 hours, and I can do it in 8 using that technology, and I'm a world-class engineer. I'm a world-class engineer. I've built some, you guys drink Starbucks, right? Every single Starbucks coffee bean goes through a roaster program I wrote. Every single one, whether you get it from Southern California or whether you get it from Augusta, Georgia. Every single cup of coffee, all of you who drink Starbucks, I wrote the program that every single bean goes through. Okay, Tesla, the Model S line in Fremont, California in 2013, the UNS architecture, that's my architecture. I built the manufacturing execution system on the Model S line in 2013. You name it. You look at those companies in the top 10, I'm the architect on all those solutions. So I am a world-class engineer. And ChatGPT can do it in 1/20th of the time. And if I'm driving the bus, you know, we're an unstoppable force. It's not that I need it to write me an email. It's that I can give it a series of instructions. I want you to do these 5 administrative tasks for me. And I want you to spit them out in Markdown language. That's one of the little tricks, by the way. So say, print it in Markdown language, because then it puts it in a text box with no formatting, which is a big pain in the butt with ChatGPT. Go ahead, your question.
Is your company like Planeteer?
Say that again?
Is your company like Planeteer?
No, so Plantier, which is, so that's a good example. They use machine learning and artificial intelligence, but primarily like in Department of Defense projects, okay? Yeah, so everyone asks me the question, like, what about their technology? Amazing technology. I strongly question the motives of the organization. And I'm big on values and mission. So we don't use their technology. So Plantier is, you guys can look them up. But it's very difficult to pin them down on what they do. But what they do is they convert data into value. That's one of the things that they do, using artificial intelligence and machine learning. They're only sending you the things you're going to use, plus all the things he needs and things. And you guys have some functional relationship. So like you're the machine interface, and you're the supervisor interface, and you're the manager interface, and I'm the machine. So I'm going to ship you everything that all of them need, and it's your job to distribute to him, and then your job to distribute to him. But what happens when he needs something new? Now I've got to add it to this connection, and then you got to add it to that connection, and all those things cost dollars. That's how they started. When we finally got him fired, we had to tear everything down and start over. And by that point, they were 7.5 in, and you know, they went in a different direction. Yep.
Talk about cybersecurity as being, you know, this hot topic. How do we know that ChatGPT hasn't been hacked and that what it's giving us back is leading in the wrong direction?
The answer is you don't, but that's where the human being comes in. So they get this question about artificial intelligence all the time. Like, is artificial intelligence gonna like replace jobs? Well, sort of. Like, think about all the positions, all the skilled positions you need, you don't fill. Like right now, if you were to go back and make the argument to get a data scientist, that's gonna be a function of the capital you have available, right? But you have people doing things that you could leverage artificial intelligence to do for you so that you could free up that capital so that you could hire that data scientist, right? So the artificial intelligence on a net creates jobs, many, many jobs. But most people have the perception that artificial intelligence is going to like kind of automate away our role. Here's the real impact of artificial intelligence and machine learning. The average employable IQ is going up drastically. Right now, does everybody know what the lowest employable IQ is based on military data? It's 73. 73. So if you have an IQ of 73 or higher, you are employable in the American economy. Okay? I don't know what you would do. I mean, 73 is a really low IQ, right? Does everybody know what the average is in the US? It's 96. So the average employable IQ is going to go into the mid-90s. That's the fundamental difference, is that you're going to have a huge chunk of the population who will never work their whole lives. This is why universal basic income is an absolute certainty, and trust me, I'm a conservative, and I'm still saying that. It's absolutely going to happen. You will have to give people money because half the people in our economy are not going to work in our economy. They're going to work in arts and entertainment. You know, they're going to be YouTubers and streamers and stuff. They'll never have a real job. And the other half is going to support the economy. That's how it will work. That's the implication. But, you know, it's not a question of let's come up with all the reasons not to use it. It's let's lean into how we can benefit from it and learn what not to do. That really needs to be the mindset. You know, and I see this all the time in organizations. If there is one thing I would want to discourage people from doing, it's finding reasons to say no. And we call it the CT no. Like if you guys, in most organizations, the chief technical officer we call them the CT no or the CI no, depending upon who it is. This is the zero trust philosophy. No first until you can make a case. No. IT departments are actually shifting from compliance and security first to service first and compliance and security second. That's actually, if you look at the most digitally advanced companies in the world, IT departments are yes first. You have an idea, it's my job to enable it. I don't have the authority to tell you no. I have to deliver on the idea. It's my job to secure it. But I got to deliver on the idea. How many of you work in organizations where that's the philosophy? Probably not many of you. Any other questions? I have questions for you guys if you don't. Yeah.
Do you think the metaverse is going to take off like Mark Zuckerberg thought it was going to do?
No. Do I believe augmented reality will play a huge role in the future of our economy? Absolutely, but not the metaverse. And the reason why is neurologists even say this, that our neural pathways aren't developed to handle being in a virtual world all the time. But we can handle augmented reality. That is being in a virtual world and the physical world at the same time. And one of the biggest things in your warehouses, augmented reality will play a huge role in how you handle your warehouses, for sure, as distributors. The idea that you'll wear, a heads-up display and I'll literally, the serial number, model number, in-service date, all that, that's an absolute certainty. Yep.
So I was interested in your comments about your team using ChatGPT
Yep.
for emails and LinkedIn, I think you said as well.
Yep.
So how do you respond to like the students today? I have two kids in college. One is getting a lot of pressure from the university about using ChatGPT. Or how would you respond to something?
I would say don't listen to your professor. I mean,
Well, it's getting to the point where it's cheating and
it's not cheating, it's a tool. Is a calculator cheating? Of course not. I have a master's in education. So I didn't go into my educational background. I have an undergraduate degree in sociology, which is how I learned why we lost all these jobs in the United States. I actually thought it was corporate greed originally, and then when I was in college, I learned, oh no, it's not. It was the Japanese and the Germans leveraged technology in the 70s. We didn't. When automation came in 1969, they used it. We didn't. Kodak had the patent on the first digital camera in the 1970s, and they said no one will ever want to use digital cameras, and they literally pissed it away. And Kodak is a punchline today,
So
right?
my question really around how should I respond to, say, my daughter who's like, I don't want to do ChatGPT because it's cheating. I think it's incredible.
Yep.
I had my son write a business plan this summer.
Yep.
I wanted to see how it worked, and within 2 minutes he had a business plan written.
Yep.
I mean, that's transformative, right?
It can't, the reality is, what I would do in my home, let's say one of my kids said, and all my kids, we use ChatGPT all day long. Everybody has the ChatGPT app on their phones. When one of the kids come to me, especially Josh's promised one, my oldest son's fiance, when she comes to me, here's an example. She came to me and she said, I want to make an argument to my boss that we should publish our salaries publicly when we try to hire people. I want to make the argument. Walker, what's the argument you would make? And I almost answered the question. I went, and I stopped, and I said, no, this is a really good chance for you to create a bot inside of ChatGPT to ask that question to. So I want you to write a prompt that's going to turn ChatGPT into me. So describe me, what my level of knowledge is and my experience, tell it what it is, and then ask the question, and then come to me with what its response is. What I would do with your daughter is I would wait until she runs into the immovable object, and then ask her as a thought experiment to do the same thing. Okay? Rather than use ChatGPT for school, use ChatGPT to solve your own internal problems. Like, there's no way to compete. I mean, it's just not, if you believe, and those of you who are close to retirement, it doesn't matter. I would say if you're 5 years to retirement or closer, don't worry about it. You know what I mean? Honestly, don't. But if you've got more than 5 years left in your career, you are literally hanging yourself because you can't compete with him. And he costs $52,000 a year. That's it. I have guys who make $150,000 a year. Yeah, we have people who make $150,000 a year who are less efficient than him, drastically less efficient. And he's 19. This is his first job. It's all the evidence you need. And by the way, we actually used Jared for the holdouts in our company. There were people who were holdouts in our organization. And what we did was we tested them. That's what we did. We just tested them, what their skill was. I didn't know that they weren't using it. We weren't tracking it. We don't do that kind of stuff. But then we used Jared as the example. So what I would say is find a problem that she has and encourage her to use ChatGPT to solve it. It's the same thing with, I was saying with video games. When, my ex-wife, when the kids were young, she would say, I don't want them to get phones at 10. And I'm thinking, that's ridiculous. It's absurd. Why would we not we're literally tying both of their hands behind their back. Because who's going to win? It's the kid who got the phone at 10. Yes. Now, do you need to manage it and control? Of course. But it's not zero trust when it comes to technology. There you go, with your kids. All right, we have 6 minutes. So, is that right? I have 6 minutes left? Okay. Let me ask, I just have these last two questions, okay? After this presentation, right, hopefully what we've done is convince those of you who do not have a digital strategy to go back and get one, okay? That's first and foremost. Number two, hopefully you understand now a little bit better what the digital supply chain is and kind of where we're going, okay, where the world is going, okay? How can you guys leverage machine learning and artificial intelligence as a supplier or a distributor? So let's just do the machine learning piece. How is machine learning, computers learning from data that you have, going to help your business?
We use an AP automation software that completely got rid of one whole person's role. We could have that person do something else.
Okay?
It does all the manual entry, all the data entry.
Right. And I was going to show you a video I didn't show you. Okay, there's new technology that just came out, which is right along these lines. It's called Frontline Copilot from a company called Tulip. They're based outside of Boston. And I was up in Boston on a panel a couple of weeks ago. And Frontline Copilot had come out. And basically what it was is it's ChatGPT for manufacturing operators. And if you go to our YouTube channel, we actually have a video of it where we demo it. And it basically gives operators an interface into the business using ChatGPT to ask questions like this, turning every person in your organization into a data analyst. So what's your role at your company?
Office manager.
All right, so let's say you're curious. You get a splinter in your mind, and you're curious about some, what was our, and I don't know what your KPIs are. I don't know what your businesses are. But what is this KPI over the last 6 weeks when the data is pivoted this way by this group of customers, okay? Now, right now, if you were to go and you wanted to get that, let's say I want to see per ticket, I want to see ticket value or line value, whatever your numbers are. How do you do that now? Like, do you go to a data analyst? Do you go to a business analyst who's going to look at the data and put it in a spreadsheet and give you a couple of days and then spit it out to you? Do you want to know how manufacturers are going to do that right now with Frontline Copilot? The operator is going to ask the question, and ChatGPT is going to literally spit the data out. You should watch the video. It's friggin' crazy. It's insane.
Where's it at?
It's at our 4.0 Solutions YouTube channel. You'll see the title of the video is Frontline Copilot. I did like an 8-minute interview with the engineer. Yeah, go ahead, Jared, and bring it up. This video right here. So you want to watch that video. And moreover, he feeds it documents from the company, and then he says, itemize the document. Go find the instruction on how I'm supposed to do X, Y, and Z and tell me what it is. Not I read through the manual to find it. It's go find it, and then it spits out, this is the instruction. Right? Same technology that your AP is using. The difference is we're using generative AI on the front end. Okay? All right, so last thing, Jared, go back to my thing. How do you guys fit into the digital supply chain? This is the big takeaway I want you guys to have. Imagine all the ideas that I gave you about that grinding wheel, just that grinding wheel. Imagine you were the one distributor working with the supplier who could collect insights from a consumable item and make that item better and improve the customer experience from supplier through the distributor to the end user. Imagine you're the one who can do that. I remember when Grainger, my career started in a salt mine in 1998, and I remember when we got Grainger. Like up until that point, like our front end was Maximo, and we had to fill out these little cards to order anything, and then it went to some lady, and then it went to somebody else, and I remember when they gave us the Grainger portal so that I could just order my wire strippers, and they would just bill the company directly. Like that was a total game changer. Now imagine that like what Amazon does is Grainger's just refulfilling because my wire strippers went bad. Imagine you're that supplier. You're that distributor. There will be a supplier and distributor who does that. That I assure you. And you guys asked lots of questions about Amazon 2 years ago. That was one of the number one questions. How is Amazon not going to kill us? And the answer is you have expertise Amazon doesn't have. That's the answer. Okay, the customer calls you and asks lots of questions. They don't just do fulfillment. Okay, all right. I really, really appreciate you guys' time. Hopefully I didn't go too hard on you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.